Hey everyone, I just wanted to take a couple minutes to explain the prompt for this week's discussion. So for this week, our discussion is titled How to Prepare for an Exam. All right, so this is sort of we're kind of working into um, learning a little bit more or practicing a little more with process writing, right? So writing out a process, explaining a process. You're not going to do this in a formal manner, mostly just in the discussion in journals, but this is our first little attempt at it here. So basically, the discussion prompt says, how do you prepare for an exam? If you were going to explain to someone how best to prepare for an exam, what would you say? Um, so, you might look at, you know, what you do just on the day of the exam, what you do the night before the exam, or perhaps you really want to get into the actual studying part. How do you study and prepare for an exam? That is probably the most helpful is, how do you actually prepare in terms of studying? But I think some interesting things can come from, what do you do the night before? What do you do the day of? Because that is also part of the preparation. Um, or you can kind of tackle all of it. Here's how I study in the days leading up to the exam, what I do the night before, what I do the morning of. You can cover it all if you want. But the idea is to explain the process. So you have to think, what do I do first and why? What do I do next? And then what do I do? And what you want to try to avoid is getting the steps out of order. All right, so as you're typing, um, if you get to a point you're like, oh, I also do this, but I should have talked about that earlier, then just go back up and add it in there. Don't don't make it more confusing by putting the steps out of order. That's kind of what we're going for here is to think, you know, if I'm doing process writing, I really have to make sure that I'm explaining the steps in a logical order and that I'm, tying it all together as I discuss it. So that's what your goal is. Your goal is to explain how you prepare for an exam and to explain that process thoroughly and in a way that your classmates will be able to understand your process, right? Okay, so this should be a good paragraph, preparing for an exam. So, 8 to 10 sentences at least, if you think about it. And it might be even longer, right? But just do your best to thoroughly explain your process. Try to have your first post up by Thursday so that everyone has plenty of time and choices to make their two peer responses by Sunday night. The discussion will remain open for an additional week, but remember, if you're posting late during that additional week, it'll be a 50% point reduction. Do your best to get that post up and respond to your two classmates by the due date on Sunday, okay? If you have any questions or run into any technical difficulties, reach out to me right away. Otherwise, I look forward to reading how all of you prepare for an exam.